Welcome to the Flower Branch Embroidery Quilt Sew Along. This is the kickoff meeting. This is week one. Hello, everybody.
Okay.
Hi. Hello, hello. This is going to be fun.
Hi, Karen.
Oh, good to see everybody. Welcome. Uh,
There we go.
Hello, everyone. Okay.
Hi.
Full house tonight. Awesome. Let's give everyone a minute to get in. Okay, so we have a nice big group today. It just means that we may have to move a little bit faster, but I would love to maybe use the chat a little bit more tonight. If everyone just takes a minute and maybe just says hi, maybe like where they're calling in from, so we can all just see. Let's just get that open while everyone gets in. Calgary, Seattle, Hamilton, Toronto, Parkdale, Midtown Toronto. Got more people coming in. Waterloo, lots of Toronto. Welcome, everyone. Tiny, Ontario, Glen Williams, Ottawa. Exciting. Let's get everyone in here. Okay. Awesome. I can't even see everyone. There's so many of us here. This is exciting. Awesome. If you're just joining in, everyone's just using the chat to say where they're calling in from. Just a really fun range of locations all across Canada and some from the US. Lots of Toronto folks, of course. I'm so happy you're all here. Um, we just have an hour, so I am going to just kind of jump into it because an hour always just seems to go by so quickly when you talk about fun sewing stuff. And I'll just keep letting everyone in. So welcome to the start of the Flower Branch Embroidery Quilt Sew Along. It is really hard to say the whole name for the sew along. I have to think about it every single time. And I can't believe we are finally about to start this quilt that I have been, feel like I've been working on getting ready for this sew along for a very, 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 very long time. Um, so I'm really happy that you're all here. I'm really happy that you're all excited to make this quilt. We've got Riverdale in the house, Parkdale, um, lots of Toronto, Oakville. Thank you, everyone. Um, so, where do we begin? So, this quilt, just getting to this stage, has been a little bit of a journey, and I just wanted to share maybe a little bit of the story of how this quilt along sort of came to be. And then obviously we'll talk about what we're doing differently and why we're doing it differently. We still have people popping in, so I'm just gonna keep um, reaching over the table. So this quilt came across. I think I've had this quilt pinned on in Pinterest for a while, and it was kind of on my mind. But I've started thinking a little bit about pixel quilts and sort of the process of putting them together because I did do one a few years ago that was I'm going to say like a little bit painful. It took a really long, it took me years to do it. It was very challenging in sort of the construction process. There was nothing that was very smooth about it. It was very like kind of like one block at a time. It was very difficult in terms of like not that it was a difficult to piece it, but it was just difficult to kind of organize and get the pattern together. And so I started thinking about them a little bit more and sort of thinking about how they can be come together a little bit quicker. And then I looked at this particular pattern. So I actually downloaded the pattern and took a look at it, and then noticed that the way that they do the pattern is sort of similar to the way that this other pattern that I did was, where they cut thousands of tiny little squares individually. And then they said, just lay them all out and then just start sewing them together. And I was just like, oh no, that doesn't seem right. I was like pretty sure that there was a faster way to do this. So anyways, I've just spent a lot of time going through the pattern and finding like the pairs of things because basically a lot of these things pair up to each other. So essentially, what I've come up with in the notes that I've made for everyone is a strategy where we're just going to be cutting strips of fabric, and then we have sort of directions on how many strips we need, and then we're going to start sewing the strips of in combination. So like one putty to one putty to one sage, and then how many of the little pieces do we cut out of that? So basically, it's kind of like I've broken it down. I've gone through every single pair that's in the quilt, tallied them all up, and I know exactly how many of this one there are, of that one there are, and I've basically created a whole schematic for everyone so that we can cut strips, cut them down, and then start to assemble in a more quicker, expedient, and hopefully a little bit more fun than the traditional method for the way that this quilt it comes together. Um, so the main thing with this quilt, I think, is really just being organized. And so that's why I've been like putting together the label sets for everyone and sort of having these sort of detailed notes that everyone is going to that everyone can download that are now posted in the resources section. And there are two PDFs that I uploaded today. And so when you have a chance, if you haven't already seen them, there's one PDF that goes through everything for the entire quilt. And so that tells you every strip that you're going to cut, every pair that you're going to make, and it breaks the whole thing down into sections. But what I've done also is I've created a second PDF, which I'm calling the Quick Start. So what I think would be helpful, and what I like to do oftentimes when I'm starting a new quilt project for the first time is it's nice to kind of get started and sort of see the process, put something together before you spend like 3 or 4 or 5 days just cutting a million pieces of fabric. So what I've done is I've picked Unit 7, which is sort of the most monotone unit of the whole quilt. So it's really there's only 9 colors out of the 28 colors that we're using. There's only 9 colors in this particular unit, so it's a little bit more minimal. So there's less multiple pairs. It's very simplified, and so you'll be able to go through the process of cutting and sewing all those strips and then constructing Unit 7. And then once you've done that, that kind of gives you like a quick start so that you can see the process, see how the cutting works, see how the method works that I've laid out for you. And then from there, it's just repeating. So a lot of this is really just repetition. So we are just going to be doing a lot of, it's like a lot of like Netflix and sewing time, or audiobook and sewing time. So you can kind of just dig into whatever, however you like to, sort of zone out when you're on your machine. You can kind of just get into the groove, and it's a lot of sort of repetition. So that is sort of kind of the overview of sort of what I've done in terms of like changing up how they approach the pattern. And hopefully, I think it makes it a lot. I mean, from the unit that I did, which was a different unit, I think it made it, a way more pleasurable experience than the pixel quilt that I did, several years ago. So that's sort of the story in a nutshell. Uh, Off the bat, did anyone have any particular questions or things that they wanted to talk about before we go further into any of the other elements? Any other thoughts or? I know we have a bunch of brand new quilters who are joining us for this solo. I'm really excited about that. And so one of the things that I did is I'm planning on doing a little video for specifically for folks who are new to quilting, but I also just posted a Sunday night sort of sewing session where we could just sit and work on our projects together, and I could go through maybe a little bit more in terms of like some specific questions about the construction or some of the more basic things that you might need a hand with once you kind of start to get started. Lisa just says, what do we do with all of the little stickers you included in the box? Yeah, so the labels. So the labels are meant to help you just be organized. So the first set of labels, the first a section of the labels where it says fabric, those are for you to label the actual fabric pieces. So all of your fat quarters can be just labeled so that you know which color is which. I think that one of the things that I found when I had mine, I labeled mine right away, and some of the colors are not what you think. Like I thought ginger was a different color. I thought ginger was mustard and mustard was ginger. And olive and some of the greens are not like they're not the shade that you expect. So I think that labeling each of the fabrics is super helpful. So the first section is the labeling all of your fat quarters if you're washing, once they're washed, so that you just have a quick reference and you're not guessing, because I feel like you will definitely get to know the colors, but you might as well just be sure and not make any silly mistakes just by having everything labeled. So that first set of labels is for you to label your fabrics. And then after that, the next set of labels,
Sorry, Karen, you are recommending we wash them then, right?
well, I
All of
am
them, even
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's up to you. I am recommending washing. I recommended washing them because I'm not familiar with this fabric. And on the Tilda website, it said pre-wash the darker colors. And I definitely didn't want to say don't do that and then have some of the darker colors bleed. I
bleed.
I didn't find any I didn't find that there was any dye released, like, or minimal dye, or if any, that I noticed in the water when I soaked them. We've had some folks, like Janine, who washed hers with a cut catcher. Another woman said that she spoke to someone who sells the Tilda and said that you don't need to pre-wash it. Like, I don't necessarily think you need to pre-wash it, but I also am not going to say that you shouldn't pre-wash it, because I don't know for sure. So
I guess
I
I guess we can put like blues if we use a die catcher. Can we put different
yeah.
blues together? I guess.
Yeah, and same thing. Like I separated mine like dark to light when I soaked them. Some people have done both. I think that from what I can tell, they're not really releasing anything. I don't think anyone else has noticed that. But for me, because of the white background, I just wanted to kind of be in the better safe than sorry category, personally, and recommend that. And I think folks are, recommend saying, the different sort of strategies that they had. I just
All right.
Pauline said she found some dye in the water. So yeah,
Hi,
I
it's
think they're
Diane. I washed mine and I recommend the soaking and not the washing because I had so many fibers and strings
yeah.
and then I saw someone post to use a marker on in the selvage perhaps and put the color on because I spent hours trying to figure out which color was which.
Yeah, I think that was my worry. You can't put the stickers on and then
I
wash,
even,
but
I even took pictures of it, but I couldn't get it matched until I
Hmm.
saw somebody that did the stickers or did the little patches on
Hmm.
um, the graph you gave us, and I could tell by the fibers at the end what
Hmm.
blues were which. So
Hmm.
pre-plan.
Yes, yeah, I know it is. I tried to provide as many resources as I could. So there is, Lisa's asking, there is a list, Lisa, of the top to bottom list of all the order of all of the colors in the stack so that if you look at the list and then you look at the stack, it tells you, from red all the way down to putty. You can find that list, or I can flag it later on. But that's why I was kind of like, before you undo the bundle, just look at the colors so you can kind of like be like, this is what this is, this is what this is, and then and then obviously once you wash them, hopefully you either remember or yeah, I think taking photos, it's hard for me to say. I think they also using the Tilda schematic, they, show the colors sort of, but obviously it's a printout, so you can't really tell. There are some colors that are like I said, like I feel like, like olive and pine, oftentimes are getting mixed up. So there are a few colors that can sort of shift because the names I think don't clearly represent. But if you're not sure, you can always, I'm pretty good with seeing them. So you can always like post a photo if you've got a color that you're not 100% sure of. I can try to help you figure that out. But yeah, some people were using like a color fast marker, and you can number them or write the name on them before you wash them is another strategy. Thanks, Nadia. That's a good one. Valerie.
Hi.
Hi.
So I have my completely new to quilting question.
Great.
I thought not washing the fabric was a strategy to get the vintage look at
The
the end.
extra
So if,
wrinkly, yes.
yeah, so if I want to do that because that's my kind of thing,
Hmm.
I can be brave and not wash the fabric.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think the whole thing is like I normally wouldn't pre-wash. Like I don't know that I've pre-washed fabric for a quilt for many, many years, but um, it's tricky when, are sort of being told you should pre-wash the dark fabrics and also, and then I have to tell 60 other people what to do. So I kind of, I think I do think that you don't necessarily need to, but I think, yeah,
I think I want the wrinkle look.
yeah, there you go. Wrinkles over, yeah. And I mean, I think the other strategy is you can, if you have color catchers, you can, use those when you wash the quilt for the first time as well as a backup plan. Yeah. I mean, there are only a couple colors that I think usually are the troublemakers. So like red is usually a troublemaker. Maybe some of the darker blues might be a troublemaker. So you could also, well, yeah, you could also selectively like soak a couple of those if had some specific worries. But I do think it'll probably be fine, but I can't say for 100% sure. Yeah.
Karen, can I ask a quick question?
Please, Daisy.
I don't know if this is new to quilting question or new to sewing question, but what exactly is a color catcher?
That's a great question. Okay, so there is it's almost like I haven't used them, so maybe someone who has them like Janine might speak up, but I believe it's kind of like a dryer sheet almost that you put in with the wash, and it's meant to sort of absorb,
Uh,
collect any dye.
uh,
Yeah,
Janine.
that's what they do. And if you're washing like jeans and things like that, if you ever throw one in, it'll come out and it'll be quite blue, but it picks up the excess dye in the water. So it works really well. And it's a good indication if there's extra dye that picks up. So I'm not a pre-washer, but I Googled lots, and these yarn dyes, can be a little bit different. So I did wash everything. I have a front loader machine. I did the hand wash cycle. I threw everything in the dryer for 15 minutes and then I pressed it flat. It was very, very zen. But my bundle, all the names are actually on the selvage. I happened to get the bundle that the way it was cut, all the names were there. So I got lucky in the bundle piece. So I did do that. But like you, Karen, I don't pre-wash, but with that putty background, I wasn't willing to take the chance. So they used to be really hard to find, and now there's a shout version at the grocery store. And when there's dye, it definitely picks it up.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. And so it looks like a little dryer sheet box, and there's Shout color catchers, different brand in the US, but yeah, they work like a hot darn. So yeah, Mary Beth said she found them on well.ca. Amazon probably has them too.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I just like to add, if anybody's using Kona, the Kona blues run terribly. The red's not so much, which is surprising, but the blues really, really run. I've been quilting and sewing for eons, and I've never ever made anything that hasn't been pre-washed, and I've never had a disaster either, like many of my friends have.
Yeah.
So I think it's just it is tedious sometimes, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't put anything on my shelves until it's washed.
Yeah. Some people are very, very meticulous about it, and I think, they will always, they can always feel assured that they're not going to run into an issue. But it is, yeah, I think it's a personal preference. But again, like for this particular quilt, for this, just having so much white as the background, I just wanted to be sure for myself. So that was why. And I didn't I didn't put them in the washing machine because it was, and also, I've never washed fat quarters. I think, that's also something I'm not usually would never usually wash a fat quarter. So I just literally put them in a basin of water with soak, agitated them a little bit, but more just let them soak in the soap detergent so that they, if they were going to do anything, that they would do that. And then I did put them in the dryer, and that would hopefully minimize how much they frayed. They did fray a little bit, but not overly. Like I did get a little bit of fray, but nothing that was too concerning.
And when you use soak, you don't have to rinse it?
That's right.
Okay, so just a basin of soak and then, yeah, and then into the dryer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Any
Yeah.
hints on ironing them? The square, it seems to be hard to iron.
Yeah, I mean they are then, I mean I think any fabric once it's washed, it just loses that amazing smoothness. Like, I don't know that you'll ever get it back to what it was when it comes off the bolt. But, I think that's kind of, that's kind of the look that it's going to end up with anyways. So, if you have flatter or even just a spray bottle to give them a good press, that's what I would recommend. So yeah, I definitely pressed all of mine afterwards, because you do want them to be at least flat. So the benefit of not pre-washing is that everything is quite smooth. It requires minimal ironing, and so you can kind of like jump into sort of working with the fabric a little bit faster. So that's usually my the way that I like to operate for quilts, but. Yeah, I'll be curious to know if folks. I'm sure there are folks who are not going to pre-wash, and I think I'm quite sure you'll probably be fine. So just to go back to the labels just real quick. So after the regular labels for the fabrics, then the next section on the label sheet is the strip pair. So part of the guide is going to tell you what are the strips, how many strips are you cutting, and then it's going to tell you like which strips go together and how many you need to pair up. So once you pair up those strip pairs, then you've got a label for all of your strip pairs so that you just don't have to guess which pair it is. So everything that you're putting together then has its own label for the stack that you've got, and when you subcut them down, so you'll just know, and you know, uh, you know, putty plus Prussian. You won't have to guess which one that is. You'll have a label on it. So as you're doing things, everything can just get a label on it, and so it just makes things a little bit more clear for you as you go along. And then there is a swatch chart. So if you haven't kind of gone through everything yet, I'll just keep going on what you all have. So the swatch chart is helpful because every color has been assigned a number. So Tilda will refer to in the final schematic, the colors just get referred to as numbers. And so it's helpful to have all of the fabrics together in one chart, and then you can easily see color 1, color 11, color 18 at a glance, but also especially for the folks who are doing their own version, that's not Tilda, that's not the Chambrays, and they've made up their own sort of color story. You again are going to be relying on these numbers. So having the chart, and Janine posted hers, and it looked, or no, it was who did their own? I think it was Louise. Louise is doing her own version with another chambray, and she wrote in the color names for all of here, all of those um, as well. So having a little using the swatch chart is just going to give you a really nice reference, so you can see all of the colors at once with all of the numbers all together, and then that'll help as we sort of move forward through the um, sort of the assembly process. You can easily refer to that chart really quickly. Any advice for those who are using their own fabric? Jean, do you have like a specific question in terms of using your own fabric?
No, I'll just use the swatch chart.
Yeah, so yeah, it's just like, and it's just I think I made a Kona sort of equivalent chart for everyone who wanted to use Kona. So, you would just pick, a similar color to lavender, and then you sub in your color instead of lavender, and you write your name there, and that becomes your number 18. So your number 18 might be Orchid Kona. And so you would just have that reference so that you know what that is. Carolina?
Hello, I'm using Kona and I didn't start organizing all my fabrics till yesterday.
Okay.
When I realized for some of the greens I needed extra, so I placed my order.
Yep.
But then now I've just opened the thing you posted today, and it
Yep.
looks like I need a fat quarter plus half a meter for each. So I think is that right?
No, it's a fat quarter plus a quarter. Like everyone got is a half meter total.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So
that's
if
great.
I just ordered the whole thing, a half meter will do then. Sorry, I'm reading this wrong. Okay.
That's
Thank you.
okay. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, so let me just talk for a minute about the fabric. So everyone who got a kit got all of their background, whether that was the putty and the or the gray. So you would have a chunk or two pieces of that fabric. So that's going to be all the fabric for your background of your quilt, and then there's a little extra there if you wanted to do your binding out of the same color as your background. Obviously, you can use that as you will, or change up your mind for that. Then we've got our stack of fat quarters from the chambray bundle. So you would get that stack of 28 colors. The greens you have the most, they kind of appear the most. And so for the greens, anyone who got the kit, you got another little stack of greens. So you're going to be using all of the fat quarter, plus you've got another little stack of greens. And the greens are pretty tight. Like I've gone through the calculation. So the greens are the one color that we kind of just need to be a little bit more careful of, and I've made lots of notes in the notes about that. So we're not gonna waste any of the greens or like, oh, we're gonna cut them very specifically to the amount that we need in terms of the strips will be a little bit more. Some of them are like cut a 12-inch strip, cut a 6-inch strip, so that we're using them very specifically. Um, all that to say, I feel like I think we should definitely have enough because we're using exactly what they've told us to use in the quilt, and the calculation works out. It's just it's tighter than some of the other colors. And all of this to say that if anyone runs out of like one or two squares of one of the greens, you can put another green, or you can, find another color that just looks good there, because no one will ever know. So I also do just want to hopefully say that, we're going to follow this recipe that they've given us, but we can also like easily like fill in if we're short a color, or if something, or if you sew a color by accident or place something by accident. In the long run, it probably doesn't matter. So we're going to pay attention, but we're also not going to be too hard on ourselves about, all of the little details, because this is a lot of little pieces, and it's more the overall effect that we're going for. And we don't have to, get too caught up in the weeds, hopefully. Valerie, you have a question.
Okay, am I getting it right? We're supposed to have, in addition to the cute little bundle and the background and the other side, which is green, we're supposed to have more colors than that?
Just a little
Or
stack of
greens?
greens.
A little stack of?
Greens, 4 greens. You don't have that? Okay. Okay. Well, I'll talk to you about that. That's okay. I tried to double check, and I had a list on everybody's chart to make sure I like made sure you got the labels, the kit, all of that stuff. So I for sure knew that somebody along the way I was going to make a mistake, even though I triple checked every single box. But they were like all folded up together on their own. Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for you. I will fix it. Um, Sarah.
But I have the little white though. I have
Yeah,
putty twice.
yeah,
That I have twice.
that's right. That's fine. Some people got 2 pieces of white because of the way they came off the bolt. Um, okay. Anyone who's missing anything, maybe just get in touch with me after, and I'll sort out what you did or didn't get, and then we can go from there. Um, okay. So, okay. So sweatshirt labels, we talked about labels. Okay. So if we, um, okay. So for instance, for the quick start, and today I really wanted today to kind of like be a bit of an introduction. We don't need to go too much into the nitty gritty of it, because we can kind of do that as we go forward, and I am going to do some videos on the actual like cutting and all of that stuff. But essentially, the notes that I've made for you kind of walk through, the step by step of like getting things cut so that you can make these strip pairs together. So we're going to be cutting lots of 2-inch strips of fabric. And again, the nice thing about this project is everything is exactly the same. So we only need to know one measurement, and that is 2 inches. And that is the exact measurement that we're just going to keep cutting over and over again. So we're going to cut 2-inch strips. Then we're going to sew those strips together in all of these pairs that kind of are listed. And then once we've got those strips sewn together, then we're just going to cut those down into little 2-inch pieces, little pairs. So all you have to think about is the 2 inches, and then we're just going to repeat that over and over again for all of the cutting that we're going to do. So we're going to start by cutting lots of strips, then we're going to start pairing the strips together, and we're going to be sewing those, and then we're going to be sort of cutting them down and into little tiny units. And we've got sort of little recipes of like how which pieces go together, and then how many of those pieces go together, and how many of those little pieces we're going to cut out. So it's just a matter of following the sort of the layout, going sort of step by step, cutting your strips first, and then following the recipes on like which pairing up the pieces together and then cutting them down. Yeah, so definitely unfold all of your pieces and just make sure things didn't get tucked inside, because I was kind of tucking some things around. It's certainly possible that you didn't get it, Valerie, but I did sort of tuck a lot of things inside a lot of other things for the shipping. Okay, sorry, just making sure I didn't miss anyone's questions. A lot of the resources are all going to be inside the resources section. So inside the Mighty Network, inside our community space for the Quilt Along, I've been posting resources and video. I put all of the videos as there as well. So basically, you've got like one place that you can go to access all of the videos and all of the downloads, and all of the, sort of all of the replays are going to be all in this one specific spot as well. So you just have to go to the resources, and if you have your alerts are set up, you'll either get an alert when I post something, or some people have it as a like a daily email that you get at the end of the day that sort of lets you know what's been updated in the space. But you can always take a look there. Okay, so um da, da, da. Yeah. Any other questions at this point so far? So
It's Pam. It's Pam.
yeah,
I have a question, and I'm jumping way ahead,
that's
but
okay.
um, is the objective to get all of our rows done for each unit, and then we'll go through the process of sewing all those rows and units together? Is that
Hmm.
sort of the course of action here?
Well, yeah. So I mean, I think some folks are more experienced quilters, some folks are
Yeah.
just starting. So I think, you can kind of choose your own adventure, I'm going to say.
Okay.
My suggestion is that we start with Unit 7, because I think that it's a good unit to get into, because it has the least amount of colors. It'll probably come together a lot quicker, because it's a lot of like putty to putty, so it's a lot of like same color to same color. So just to kind of get into the rhythm of cutting the fabric, sewing the fabric together, and going through the construction, which I will go through with you. So my suggestion would be to start with that particular unit, and um, you know for folks who are comfortable, you can start cutting your fabric. And for folks who want a little bit more guidance, you can wait until either next Sunday, or I do plan on posting a little video about sort of the first steps. So whatever your comfort level is, I'm here to sort of support you through that. But I know that some people basically can kind of look at this and probably start moving forward, and you're more than welcome to go in whatever direction makes sense to you. Rebecca.
It's a lot of sewing,
It's
but
a lot of
it's
sewing.
very exciting.
We'll be sewing for a very long time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Hey, Rebecca.
I just had a question about whether you think if we cut with the grain, is there a right and wrong side to the fabric, or a right and wrong way to position the squares?
Yeah, so okay, good question. So my suggestion would be, and I think I wrote this in the notes that I gave you. My suggestion is to cut across the grain. So we're going to cut crosswise. And
Yep.
so let me just do an overhead here. Just for folks who are new, although I know a lot of us have been sewing for a long time. So, and I can, there was a question about using the stripology ruler. So I'm going to just pull up a cutting mat. Okay. Okay. So this is, I mean, I've already been working on and cutting strips for my fabric. So this was a fat quarter. And so you can see here where the fringe is, this is my selvage here. So this is my selvage. And the way that we want to be cutting our fabrics is we want to be cutting our strips this way. So we want to be cutting like from what would be selvage to selvage. So from across the grain. So we don't want to be cutting like with the selvage. We want to cut this way across. So when I'm using the stripology ruler or a ruler, whichever ruler you are using. So if you're using, if you were using one, just a regular rotary cutter ruler, you would, most likely I would sort of orient my mat long ways and I would cut like this, right? So I'd cut my 2 inches here, and then I would cut right along there. So that's going to give me my 2 inches. With this stripology ruler, because we're using these, so there's an extra large version of this, but we're using sort of the slightly smaller version of this. To cut our fat quarters, we have to fold them in half. So what I was doing is I would just fold my fabric in half this way. So just carefully so that you're sort of aligning the grain like that. And then you're just going to put the ruler over top. So, and I'm going to flip this around. So with the stripology ruler, Carolina was asking, there are sort of all of these lines on the ruler, and then there's the slots that kind of go up. So with the stripology ruler, you can line this up on your on top of your fat quarter or whatever you're cutting, and you want to sort of square it up with one of these. There's sort of this white line here at the bottom of the ruler. So you can line up the bottom fold of your fabric, because I've folded it in half with that. So it means that your slot is going to be just below that white line. So where you drop your rotary cutter in is going to be below the white line. So you've kind of squared up. And then you're going to sort of make sure your 0 line, which will be your first cut, is, you can kind of just shift it in so that you're going to sort of clean up this end. So I've got a rough edge here. I want to clean that up first. I'm just going to move my label before I do this cut. I'll cut my label in half. So just drop this down, move this over to the 0 line. And then the nice thing with the cutter is, so we're going to be doing 2 inches. So once I've got myself in the right position, my line is lined up on the fold. The 0 line is on. I'm going to sort of clean up the first edge of my fabric. I'm just going to do 0, 2, 4, 6, however many strips I need of this fabric. I may only need for red. Well, let's look. For the red quilts, the red fabric on here. Let me just look at my cut list. Strips per color. So red is 5.2 strips. So I would need, I think I've already cut a few for my other fabrics, but I would need to do like up to 10. So I would do 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and that would give me 5 strips. So with this, you could just hold the ruler like you would any other ruler carefully from the side, just pressing a little bit of pressure, put your rotary cutter into the slot, slide forward. That's the 0 cut. Then I'm going to go to 2, 4, 6. So, and I literally say the numbers out loud just because I don't want to make a mistake. So I'm just 2, 4, 6, 8ing all the time as I'm cutting. 8 and then 10. So that's going to give me the 5. I probably already have another strip there. And so I just quickly have gotten my red fabrics cut. So using the strips per color to cut per color, let's say you wanted to just go and cut the whole thing. It's on page 7 of the full schematic. You could just go through that list and that's going to tell you how many strips of every color you're cutting. So some of the colors don't need don't have a lot of strips. So some, like petrol, for instance, has 7.4 strips or so. Whereas, gray only has 1.3 strips. So some colors you're only going to cut, 1 or 2. Some of them you're going to cut all of them plus the extra fabric that you've gotten. So, you've got sort of a list of fabric, and then you're going to have, a lot of sort of nice leftover fabric. So the strip recipe there kind of gives you the breakdown of how many strips you need. But if you look for this quick start, there is sort of the same thing. So for this, if you just focus on the quick start to start, that kind of gets you like cutting only 9 of the colors, and you're going to cut all the fabrics for um for the whole quilt. So it's like if you are doing the quick start, we might as well just, if we're cutting blue, we're just going to cut all the blue that we need for the whole quilt. You'll use what you need for the quick start. You'll have your strips left over to pair up later on when you do the other ones. Yeah, so for the fractions, it's basically just means that uh it should theoretically mean like, a half uh it's like it's almost like inches. So it's like it probably means that the petrol, for instance, needs like 2 other pieces. So it's like 7 strips plus 4 inches. So some of them are only going to need not a full strip. They're going to have a strip plus like just a couple little pieces. There's not a unit by unit breakdown. There's just the unit 7, and then there's the whole quilt. But within the whole quilt, it goes it basically, yeah, so with that, it just then once you've done unit 7, then the rest of it is just the whole quilt. So you just have like the whole list of everything to cut, because at that point you kind of just go through the whole thing. Yeah. It was just too much to break out every single unit. I'm just making sure I've got all your questions. Does that help, Carolina, for the stripology ruler?
Totally, thank you. Yeah, and I was typing this, but since I've got my mic unmuted, I just want to say thank you because you've done a huge amount of work helping make this super easy for us. So just really grateful to you for doing all that.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know why I became so obsessed with doing all of this work. It kind of became like one of those things where I was like, I'm gonna make this better. And then I just kept going like a little bit further to make it even better. So you're welcome. It has been a lot of work, and that's why I could only post these notes today, because I literally have been like working, revising. I've got like, it's like I've done a thesis. I like have like revised these instructions, gone through them like block by block, strip by strip, checked everything on the grids multiple times. So surely there's some mistakes in there, but I feel like I've done my best to be as accurate as I can with it. So hopefully it comes through, but do let me know if you find anything weird in there. I have tried to foresee all of the weird things, and hopefully I've caught most of them, but surely I've missed something along the way. But hopefully it'll come through and you'll see as we start moving forward, how, how this process is, how process is going to be a lot smoother than literally sewing one tiny square to another tiny square over and over again. Any other questions or thoughts? Are folks excited to get started? Yes. It's such a pretty quilt. The fabric, I mean, whatever you're using, but the chambray in particular, I've really, really loved working with it. It's so nice. It's very, I wasn't sure if it would be like weird or slippery but it sews together really nicely, and the colors are just so soft and pretty. I think the result is really lovely. So we are in for a lot of sewing, but like I said, hopefully you can kind of like pair that with some of the some other activities that you like that kind of will sort of feed you through this repetition. And I will share, sort of the strategy was with like chain piecing and all of that, where we're going to just kind of keep sewing pieces through the machine and have them all connected to each other. There's definitely other strategies in the sewing process that can make it a little bit more efficient, and we'll go through that. I don't want to, load too much into sort of our welcome event. And then I did just want to mention, so one of the other challenges, there have been a few challenges with this quilt along. So one of the other challenges with this quilt along that I kind of hinted at earlier is I kind of stumbled into a, another level of the fabric world that I didn't realize existed with Tilda. So I kind of decided that I was going to do this quilt, and then I kind of decided that we were going to do this quilt along, and I kind of started to plan it, and then we did our pre-order launch, and everyone was excited about it. And then it wasn't until after everyone had placed their orders, and I had just gone to my supplier to order all of this fabric, that they told me that I couldn't actually order this fabric, which I had never heard of before in all of the years that I have been a quilt shop owner or a fabric store owner. I didn't realize that there was fabric that you can't just buy out there, and apparently Tilda is one of those fabrics. So Tilda has a very, very strict policy about who can sell their fabrics and who cannot. And I'm not one of their approved retailers. And so I had to move a few mountains and call in a few favors to be able to get the fabric that we needed for this sew along. And we kind of broke some of the Tilda rules. And so that is why we kind of had a certain amount of bundles and fabrics, and then I just didn't have any more. And it remains to be seen whether or not they're going to change those rules. It kind of comes from Tilda, like it's comes from way up high in the Tilda Mountain. So just wanted to explain why you may not necessarily see us actually selling this fabric going forward, because we're actually just not allowed to. And so it's kind of a weird part of the industry that I've didn't know existed, and now I'm very familiar with. So I just wanted to share with you, because that it may seem a little bit strange that we kind of like had a supply and then it has totally dried up. I think we only have just a little bit of some of the greens left over, and yeah, it doesn't really make sense. So I just wanted to share that little I guess hot gossip with you on sort of what's going on behind the scenes in order to kind of get this sew along up and running. It has been a challenge in a few different ways, but hasn't stopped me. I'm pushing forward. I've been pushing forward against all odds. We are all making this quilt, and so it's going to be worth it. Any other thoughts or questions? I'm very happy that you're all here. I'm very excited to see all of these quilts come together, and I'm excited to just like also just have a project like this, to work on for, for the summer. It's one of those projects I think you can kind of like dip in and out of, and kind of just do a chunk of sewing and then and make some good progress with it.
Can
Can I
you
ask?
explain? Oh,
Oh, go ahead.
can
Sorry.
you explain a little bit about like the sew along process? So, obviously it'll be the summer and like I'm not saying me, but probably me will fall behind at some point with all the other things going on. Can you just explain what the next like 9 weeks kind of looks like from an expectation standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, absolutely. We all have various things, external forces in our lives that we will be contending with, and so I don't have like a set, I don't really have like a set, too much of a set schedule. My goal is to just kind of like get us rolling, kind of do the quick start together. I feel like we want to have, we can kind of go through any challenges. I want to make sure that I'll show you my process, like I'll share and show you exactly how I approach this, what my setup is, how I sew things, how I press things, all of that. I'm gonna go make sure you can see all of that, and I do want to spend some time actually sewing with you. But at a certain point, we've got three other sort of meetings that we're meeting up for so that we can check in and chat and support each other. But I mean, I think folks will just go faster, go slower, go in whatever pace or direction. The all of the resources that I'm going to create, so the ones that are existing, the new videos that I will be posting, those you'll just always have access to. So whether you're following along right now in real time and keeping up and then moving forward, that's totally up to you. If you have to put this on pause and then come back to a little bit later, there is no, you always be able to check in and access all of this. And I'm sure we will be working on these quilts for a long time to come. Hopefully we'll just keep posting and encouraging each other through the process, but there is no like set deadline to get this done. I think that's in some ways can be unrealistic with all of the things that we're all dealing with, but my plan is to kind of try to move through this as much as I can through the summer. I don't know what that is actually going to look like, my goals versus like what's actually going to happen. But I do want to move through as many of these units as I can through the summer. And I think kind of once we get rolling, hopefully I will just kind of keep falling back into this. And I will post when I can, I will post some, sewing sessions as well. So like the one that we're going to do next Sunday, where we can just kind of like sit and just be like, I've got an hour, let's just make a little bit of progress on the quilt. So hopefully all of those resources and all of that support is just helpful, and we kind of can get some momentum over the next 8 to 9 weeks. But realistically, we all know that we're not always in control of our craft time, although we would want it to be sort of the number one thing that we're doing. Sometimes something else is going to pull us away from that, but we are always going to be here to support you. So you'll always be able to access this space, and hopefully we'll just keep sharing all of that. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Um, I haven't read through all of the instructions yet, and I'm sure when I do that, it'll become clearer and clearer each time I read it. But
Yeah.
if you were to suggest someplace to start, would it be cutting all the strips out using that strips to cut per color on page
Yeah.
7? And then would that make it easier to start unit 7
Mm-hmm.
with all of
So
that having been done?
yeah, for sure. So I think there's two approaches you can do. So you can do the strips to cut for just Unit 7, which is in the Unit 7 PDF. So you could do just those 9 colors, cut all of those colors, and then that's enough to get you going and making Unit 7. My goal with the quick start, or my idea with a quick start, when I like to do a quilt project with a group, is that it's nice to just not get bogged down with all of the cutting. And also it's helpful, I think, to start to make it sooner than later. So it's like you want to kind of get a little bit of momentum understand the process, be able to be able to change. Like if you feel like, oh shoot, this maybe I want to do this a little bit differently, or that didn't quite work out the way that I wanted to. You kind of want to figure those things out sooner than later. So my idea with the quick start, so just focusing on the quick start PDF and just cutting those strips of fabric, and then let's get to sewing those together. We can kind of all make unit 7. Again, I think it's a quick win. There's not that many colors. It's a lot of white to white to white to white. Like that's going to be so easy, and that's going to feel really satisfying, hopefully, to just put it together. It might be like a little bit boring. It's not as colorful, but I think just being able to get one unit together and just to kind of, I'll work through and show you the process that I like to do. Again, I think there's a lot of different ways to approach quilting. So what, for instance, in the way that they assemble the quilt, a lot of times they say to, sew all your rows together, then sew all the rows to each other. I don't love to sew long rows of tiny little quilt pieces together. I like to sew little like blocks. So I like to do 4 pair to pair to make a 4 square, like a 4 patch. And I like to make little blocks. So I'm like building blocks instead of long skinny strips that kind of get wonky. So I'll share all of that process. But I think if you want to cut everything, go for it. If you're like, I'm in the mood, I want to cut everything, you have that list. If you are like, I want to just get a little bit of cutting and get to some sewing, then the quick start, focus on that quick start PDF, and you can kind of cut all those fabrics out, and we can kind of get to sewing those little strips of fabric together. The one thing that I would just say, and I think, I can talk a little bit more about that, is just we are sewing exactly the same thing over and over again. So the only thing that I would say is what we want to do is we want to keep a consistent seam allowance, which is the 1/4 inch. So as long as your 1/4 inch stays the same through the whole project, that's kind of our goal. So if some people got 1/4 inch feet, so that's going to be really helpful. So you'll be able to use your foot as your clear guide for having that consistent seam allowance, or you can mark your machine. But what you want to avoid is sort of having your seam allowance kind of change over the course of the project, where then things are not going to come together as nicely. So as much as possible, we'll just focus, if you can kind of focus on keeping your seam allowance really consistent through the project, then that's going to just mean that everything comes together. So Lisa's just asking about the little grid guide. So put mine away here. So the little grid guide, this little doodad here, this is for when we start to put the quilt together. We are going to be using, so in the tilde pattern, they give you these schematics of every unit. So for instance, this is unit 7, right? And so it shows you all of the numbers for unit 7, and so that you know which pairs go together. And so this is helpful when you want to we're going to start to line up and map out, like this row. So you can look just at a particular section. And then when you want to, when you're going to, sew like a little block unit of them, like 4 squares to 4 squares, then you can kind of just look at specific areas. So this little grid guide is meant to help you when you're actually starting to do the assembly, and you want to just kind of shut out all of the other rows, all of the other numbers, so that you're really just focused on what you're putting together. I used to just make this out of cardboard. I had like a little piece of cardboard that I would just move around, because you get mixed up. You mix up one row to the next row, and then you're like putting the wrong fabrics together. So this helps to sort of keep you focused on the section that you're working on, so you can just clearly see the the zone that you're working on, and all of those specific numbers. And I usually also just will put a piece of washi tape on it, so that it doesn't slide around. So I'll usually I've got a little piece of washi tape here. I just like put the washi tape on it, and then just tack it down on the section that I'm working on, and then I can just very quickly see. So that's what that little grid guide is. So you don't really need the grid guide at this moment. It's more for when we start to do the actual assembly, bits. Did I miss any other questions?
There was a question about is there a right and wrong side to the fabric?
Oh yeah, good question. I don't think so. There is, I think there always is a right side and a wrong side to fabric. There is like what is considered the facing in the way that it's woven, but I don't think that it matters on this fabric personally. So, and it would be impossible, I feel like, to really keep track of that. It would be so, crazy making. I would just like be so crazy trying to keep track of which side is which. So I would say I'm not worrying about that at all for me.
Is that the same for Kona, Karen?
Yeah, I mean Kona I think doesn't also I never think right side, wrong side on Kona. I think I just use Kona whichever way. Yeah, personally. Does any somebody tell me if they have a different opinion on that? I would love to know. And I would love to know how you keep track. Valerie.
I know my question is a little silly
I love it.
because I don't know what I'm doing, but
Okay.
when we'll get to the end and we have to quilt the thing,
Yes.
um, am I mistaken, or some people have it done by somebody else? They don't do it themselves. But from what I saw, those are kind of straight lines that we'll be doing. So we
Mm.
can do that on our own machine.
Yeah, so if you like the quilting that they did in the sample, which is basically I think they call this like matchstick quilting where it's just like really tiny straight lines that are really close together. You could theoretically do that on your machine if you want to. Yeah, for sure. It's just it's a lot of fabric and bulk to push through, but that's people do it all the time, so you definitely can do that.
So we have to find a way to kind of roll it to get it in the
Yeah, so
machine.
there's like some people make long like log rolls, almost like
Yeah.
some people like kind of shove it through. But I love that you're already at the end of this project, Valerie. That is amazing because we are just getting started.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But
That's my personality.
let's manifest. I would like us all to manifest being at the end of this
Yeah.
project together. Let's manifest that we're going to get to the end and we're going to have this quilting problem to think about for sure.
Yay.
And
Be
I
Thank you.
positive.
I was just wondering how much does that particular quilting contribute to the look of the whole quilt?
I think I don't know that I've really seen a lot of other versions of this quilt, but I think the quilting adds something like, like you could,
Mm,
I'm sure you could do other things. Like I don't know if this is how I would quilt my version of this. I don't think I've thought about it, but I think it does, the quilting always can change,
yeah.
the feel of it. So something we can all ponder over the next however many hundred hours we're going to be sewing.
I want to hear all of your opinions. I want to know.
Yes, yeah, for sure. We can start. I can
Would
start over.
they have that end-to-end matchstick quilting? If you took it to a quilter, they put it in their long arm, they would have that matchstick.
I mean, that would just be them basically going back and forth with
Yeah,
almost like a either, I mean, they may freehand that. I don't know if they would channel lock that. I think it depends. Yeah. I think it probably is channel locked. It's very, very tight and
some quilters
it looks very straight.
don't do custom works. They just do end-to-end stuff, put it in the machine and it goes. So I was just wondering.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are definitely quilters who would do that though. So you would just have to find the right one who's willing to do that work.
So Karen, if we chose to go that route and not do it ourselves, could we still say we made the quilt
Of
with
course.
a clear conscience?
100%. Some people never quilt their quilt. So let's just get that off the table. Like that is not something that if you have any part in making this quilt, you can say that you made this quilt. You do not have to also quilt this quilt.
Okay.
Someone else can do
Good
that
to
for you.
good
That
to
is
know.
that
Not
is
that I'm not trying to back away from doing anything, but I'm kind of imagining being at the end of the quilting process, just like Valerie.
Love it. Yeah.
Was so I just be comfortable with sewing and be a more confident sewer. But now I'm starting to think maybe at the end, if I actually do get to the end, will I be just wanting a break and wanting someone else to do the big, volume-ish thing that I
Yeah.
might not be able to maneuver myself. So I just want to make sure I could still say I did the quilt.
100%. It will still be your quilt, Daisy, all the way.
Okay, thank you.
There were a few questions about, I don't know, hopefully everybody, I know a lot of you, but hopefully everybody has logged on to the online community space because that's really where everything is and everything is going to be posted there. So if you haven't gotten in there, let us know if you need a hand getting into there because that's literally going to be where you're going to find absolutely everything and where you can also post questions, post your progress photos. But all the replays, all the videos, all of these PDFs, they're all there for you in one place. So it's going to be your resource. You're not going to have to like look for emails or any of that stuff. It's all going to be in this online space that you can access anytime, all the time, forever. I mean, forever being, a loose term there. But for the long foreseeable future, as long as the workroom is around. And so that's really, the hub where you want to make sure that you're checking in. So I earlier today posted a new event, and the event is going to be next Sunday evening as kind of some sewing time. So where we can actually do some cutting and sewing together, and I can answer I'll be more set up to answer some more specific questions about the actual process of, the first steps, and especially just wanting to make sure that folks who haven't done patchwork before have that support to kind of get the basics under their belt as they start moving forward. Everything is going to be recorded. So this call is recorded. It will be posted today or tomorrow. And then same thing with any of the other online events that you do. If you miss anything, that's okay. It's all going to be posted, so you can always refer to it later, whether you were there or not. And you can also access those replays anytime. Valerie.
I do have another very important question, like life or death. Okay.
Okay.
I've heard ladies talking about quilts a few years ago, and the preoccupation seemed to be that we absolutely have to sign the quilt with kind
A
of a
label.
label. I need help. I need help with that. I don't
Yeah.
know. Where do I get that? What? Oh, help.
Okay. I love all these end of the project questions that we're going to think about for a very long time together. And we can keep talking about them for the next few months. But the label is something that you can either make yourself, or there are the workroom sells like quilt labels where it's like started and finished. That might be a fun label to have for
I
this
want
project.
one.
Yes. Or you can embroider something, or sometimes I will stitch something into my quilts, like my name or the date. You can label or mark your quilts in a lot of different ways. So we can definitely keep talking about that as one of our points of inspiration to keep us moving forward towards the end. Okay. I love how much the chat is uh, filled out tonight. So I will look through that later. Let me know if I've missed anything that I need to tap into. Yeah, so Sunday, June 14th. So next Sunday. You can RSVP. It's in the studio calendar for the space. And if you're able to make it, that would be great. We can sit and sew together. And then the next sort of meetup will be 2 Mondays from now, I think is the next sort of meet up there. And then in between, I will have another, I'm trying to post like little video lessons. So I will have another sort of video lesson that hopefully will be helpful as well. Okay. Any other questions before we head out for tonight? I'm excited that we're getting going. Anything that comes up that you need help with or that you want to share during the process, you can always just post in the feed in the community group there. Post your questions there. We all want to see what you're doing. All want to help you. So I want to help each other. We can talk about, we can start a post about labels. We can start a post about long arming and quilting, so we can really have a lot of time to think about those details and talk about them together more. This is going to be really fun. I'm excited to make this quilt with you. Um, any last thoughts or questions, anyone?
Thank you, Karen.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I'm excited to get going and actually get cutting and sewing with you. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your patience as we sort of get everything set up and rolling. And yeah, looking forward to hopefully seeing some of you next Sunday and we can do a little bit of sewing together.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Karen.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye now. I
Bye.
guess I'll get lost.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.